Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting right into something we all deal with, like constantly, persuasion.
hmm
Just think about all the information hitting us, daily news, ads, opinions everywhere, and how do we even decide what to believe?
Yeah, and the key to unpacking all that really is understanding ethos, pathos, and logos.
Exactly.
These aren't just, old dusty terms from philosophy class. They're fundamentals. They're the levers that actually shift what we believe.
Right.
Aristotle talked about them centuries ago: credibility, emotion, logic, and they're arguably even more important now with everything being online.
Totally.
This isn't just theory. It's about understanding, well, your own mind and the world bombarding you with messages.
Couldn't agree more. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really get a grip on how these three modes, ethos, pathos, logos, shape our beliefs, how we talk to each other, and the choices we make every day in this digital age.
Yeah.
We know you want to get the insights quickly without feeling totally overwhelmed, and that's what we aim for. So let's kick off with some big questions. Like, do we really lean on logic as much as we think we do when forming opinions?
Good question.
And why does just one single story sometimes, hit us way harder than pages of statistics?
Yeah, that's a big one.
And are we even aware of how we're being persuaded, like, all the time?
These are exactly the questions we need to tackle. So let's quickly define the terms, just so we're all on the same page.
Okay.
Ethos, that's all about credibility, trust. Do you believe the source? Think you should believe me, I'm a doctor. Yeah. That kind of authority.
Got it. Trustworthiness.
Then pathos, that's emotion.
Yeah.
The feelings, does it pull at your heartstrings? Maybe imagine if this happened to your child. That hits differently.
Definitely emotional.
And logos, that's the logic, the reasoning. Does it make sense? Is there evidence? According to the data, that's logos.
Okay, ethos, pathos, logos, credibility, emotion, logic.
Exactly. And crucially, these are almost always mixed together. It's not usually just one. They blend in most arguments you hear.
Right, like a recipe.
Precisely. Okay, so let's dig into why this matters so much, practically speaking.
Yeah, let's do that. Because publicly, in areas like science or politics or news, we always say we value logos, the logic, the facts.
That's the facts, man.
Exactly. But then if you look at how we actually form our personal beliefs, the ones we really hold on to, well, it often feels like pathos, the emotion, and ethos, who we trust, are really driving the bus.
That disconnect is fascinating, isn't it? You can have, like, the most detailed scientific report, tons of data.
Right.
But then one really moving story, just one anecdote about one person, can completely change minds or galvanize action in a way the data doesn't.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
Think about a really charismatic speaker. They can sway a crowd, make people feel connected, even if their logical arguments aren't maybe the strongest. While someone else, just as informed but maybe less engaging, doesn't have the same impact. And, look at today's world. It feels like sometimes whether we accept something as fact depends more on whether it comes from our side, our political group, our trusted news source.
What's your tribe's ethos, basically?
Exactly. More than the actual evidence itself. It's about who said it.
So why? Why this gap between what we say we value logic and what actually seems to influence us feelings and trust?
Well, if you think about how we're wired, it starts to make sense. We're not, logic processors primarily.
Not Vulcans.
No, exactly. We're story-driven creatures. We're social. Right. We rely on connections, trust. And emotions are deeply, deeply tied into how we make sense of everything. Plus, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Really digging into complex data, following intricate logical arguments, that takes serious mental effort.
Cognitive load.
Precisely. And our brains, while they like to conserve energy when they can, they look for shortcuts.
Okay, so tell me more about these mental shortcuts. How does the brain actually handle this stuff?
Okay, so one big factor is cognitive ease. Our brains just prefer things that are easy to process, things that feel familiar, simple, or resonate emotionally.
Easier is better for the brain.
Pretty much. Chewing through dense statistics, that's hard work. A story that flows, an emotional appeal, that just slides right in. It feels fluent.
Makes sense.
Then there's something called the affect heuristic. Basically, we use our gut feelings as a quick judgment tool.
Like a mental shortcut based on emotion?
Exactly. If something makes you feel bad or uneasy, you might just decide it is bad without really analyzing the logic behind it. It's a fast, if not always accurate, way to decide.
Okay, I can see that. What else is going on?
Oh, a huge one is confirmation bias. We actively seek out and pay more attention to information that confirms what we already believe.
Yeah, we all do that, don't we?
We do. So an anecdote or a story that perfectly fits your worldview, it sticks. You remember it. Data that challenges your beliefs.
Hmm.
Maybe you scrutinize it more, find reasons to dismiss it, or just ignore it.
Guilty as charged, probably.
We all are, to some extent. And think about narrative transportation. When a story really pulls you in, you get immersed.
Right? Totally lost in it.
Yeah. And research shows that when you're in that state, you're actually more susceptible to the beliefs or attitudes embedded in that story. It's more persuasive than just reading bullet points.
So the story carries you away and the message comes along for the ride.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And lastly, just the reality of limited attention and time. Information overload is real.
Tell me about it.
So we skim headlines, we watch short video summaries, we click on things that grab us emotionally because we just don't have the bandwidth or maybe the inclination to engage deeply with everything.
Yeah.
That kind of deep logical analysis takes sustained focus.
Which is in short supply these days. It's like you said, the brain's on power-saving mode.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this isn't just, about people who aren't educated or whatever. Studies show even highly educated individuals often give more weight to a personal story, a lived experience,
Yeah.
than to statistical probabilities.
Really? Even scientists or academics.
It happens. We remember vivid examples much more easily than abstract data. A powerful image can provoke a stronger reaction, a faster judgment, than pages of neutral analysis.
So it's not that we actively dislike facts.
No, not necessarily.
It's just that our brains are kind of hardwired to prioritize narratives, emotions, personal connections.
Precisely. And here's a really key thing, a concept called motivated reasoning. Often the process goes like this. First, we have an emotional reaction or a gut feeling about something.
Yeah.
Then
we find the logic to back it up.
exactly, we work backward, searching for reasons, for evidence, that justifies the belief we already arrived at emotionally. We rationalize.
Okay, that feels uncomfortably familiar too. So
Yeah.
understanding this gap, this preference for pathos and ethos sometimes over logos, what do we do about it? How do we navigate this world of persuasion better?
Right, it's not about trying to become purely logical robots, because that's impossible and probably not even desirable.
Yeah.
The answer is more about cultivating a more mindful and balanced approach. I think it breaks down into roughly 3 areas.
Okay, what's the first one?
First is content filtering, or maybe better put, selective consumption. It's about being really conscious of what information you're taking in, and maybe more importantly, why you're consuming it.
Why am I reading this or watching this?
Yeah. Are you genuinely seeking truth and understanding? Or are you maybe looking for validation for what you already think? Or just distraction? Or maybe a sense of belonging with a group?
That requires some honest self-reflection.
It does. But knowing your motivation helps you choose better. Aim for sources that are, let's say, high signal and low noise. Information that's actually valuable and relevant without tons of filler or, manipulative spin. And that could be anything, a well-researched article, a thoughtful video, even a really insightful social media thread sometimes.
Okay, so be intentional about our information diet. Makes sense. What's number 2?
Second is cognitive fitness. Think of it like mental endurance training.
Like going to the brain gym.
Sort of. It means actively making time to engage with more complex long-form content. Things that require sustained attention, maybe books, in-depth documentaries, structured debates. This helps build your focus muscle.
Counteracting the skim and scan habit.
Exactly. And part of this fitness is also learning to recognize manipulative tactics. Spotting when pathos is being used unfairly to hijack your emotions and bypass reason.
Like fear-mongering.
Yeah, or excessive appeals to pity, things like that. And also spotting what we could call shallow ethos, when someone claims authority or credibility without actually having the substance or expertise to back it up.
Like empty credentials or just saying, trust me.
Right. Or sometimes it's more subtle, like someone saying, I'm just asking questions, as a way to introduce doubt or conspiracy without actually providing evidence. Being aware of those patterns is key.
Okay. Strengthen the mind, get better at spotting manipulation. And the third piece.
The third is blended communication. This is really important if you're the one trying to persuade or even just have a productive discussion. The most effective approach is usually to weave your logos, your facts, and reasoning together with pathos and ethos.
Don't just present the data dryly.
Right. Use metaphors, use relatable examples, tell a brief story to illustrate your logical point. Show the human impact of the data, make it resonate emotionally. And always, always work on building genuine trust ethos through transparency, honesty, acknowledging complexity.
So connect the logic to feelings and build trust.
Yeah. The key takeaway here is you usually can't effectively fight feelings only with facts. You need to connect on multiple levels. Address the logic, yes, but also acknowledge the emotions and establish your credibility.
That's a really powerful framework. Logic for the head, emotion for the heart, trust builds the bridge. Okay, this helps us understand external persuasion. How can we flip this inward? Use ethos, pathos, logos to understand our own deeply held beliefs.
Oh, absolutely. This is where it gets really interesting for self-understanding. Start by picking a belief you hold pretty strongly, something core to you.
Okay. Like maybe I believe hard work always leads to success. Or I distrust large corporations, something like that.
Perfect examples. Got one in mind.
Yeah, I think so. What's next?
Now, try to dissect why you believe that. Use our three lenses. First, ethos. Who or what influenced this belief? Was it your parents? A mentor you admire? A particular author or public figure? Maybe a community you belong to? Where did the trusted input come from?
Okay, thinking about the who.
Then pathos.
Hmm.
What emotions are tied up with this belief for you? Does holding it make you feel safe or righteous or maybe hopeful? Or does challenging it bring up fear or anger or discomfort? What's the emotional landscape around it?
Right, the feelings attached.
And finally, logos. What facts, evidence, or logical reasoning supports this belief in your mind? Have you seen correlations? Read studies. Had personal experiences that seem to prove it? What's the rational scaffolding?
Wow, okay. Breaking it down like that, it does make you think differently about why you believe something.
It really does. And the next step is to look for imbalance. Is your belief resting almost entirely on one leg of the stool?
Like, it's all emotion and not much evidence.
Exactly. Or maybe you're relying completely on the ethos of one source without really examining the logic yourself. Or perhaps it's all theoretical logos, but you haven't considered the emotional impact or trusted different perspectives. Recognizing if it's lopsided is really insightful.
So, checking the balance. Ethos, pathos, logos. And how could we push this self-analysis even further?
A good challenge is to ask, how would someone who doesn't share my background, ethos, or my emotional responses, pathos, or maybe uses different logical premises, logos, how would they argue against my belief?
Trying to genuinely see it from another perspective.
Yeah. Stepping outside your own framework, even hypothetically, it can really illuminate potential blind spots or areas where your belief might be, shall we say, less robust than you thought.
This is a fantastic tool for like cognitive hygiene, really understanding the foundations of our own views. Are there other related models or frameworks that complement this?
Yeah, there are a few helpful ones. One is the MIP framework: memorize, internalize, personalize.
MIP. Okay, what does that mean?
For any given belief, ask yourself, have I just memorized what someone else said? Am I just repeating their ethos? Or have I internalized it? Do I actually understand the reasoning, logos, and the emotional resonance, pathos, behind it?
Hmm.
And finally, have I personalized it? Meaning, have I tested it against my own experiences, integrated it into my own value system, made it truly mine?
Ah, so it's about the depth of ownership of the belief. Am I just borrowing it or do I really own it?
Exactly. It maps quite well onto ethos, pathos, logos. Are you just relying on someone else's credibility, or had you done the work to internalize and personalize it?
That's really useful. What else?
Another way to frame it is the triangle of belief: identity, emotion, evidence.
Identity, emotion, evidence. How does that relate?
Think of identity as closely linked to ethos. Does this belief align with who I am, my group affiliations, my values? Emotion obviously links to pathos. What feelings does this belief evoke or satisfy? And evidence maps onto logos. What facts or logic support it?
So it ties the belief directly to your sense of self.
Yeah, can be particularly helpful for analyzing those really core beliefs that feel like part of your identity.
Interesting. And is there like a quick way to figure out which mode, ethos, pathos, or logos we personally tend to lean on first?
Yeah, there's a simple short test you can do. Think about when you encounter a brand new idea or piece of information, what's your very first gut reaction question?
Okay.
Is it immediately? Who said that? Or is this source credible? That's an ethos first reaction.
Right.
Or is it, wow, how does this make me feel? Or what's the emotional impact here? That's pathos dominant.
Okay.
Or is your first thought, okay, does this logically make sense? Or what's the evidence for this? That points towards logos being your default starting point.
Huh. That's a neat little diagnostic. Who said it? How does it feel? Does it make sense?
Exactly. Try applying that to the last few articles you read or videos you watched. It can be quite revealing about your own default processing style.
I'm definitely going to try that. Now, you mentioned an exercise earlier, like a worksheet to apply this personally.
Absolutely. It's simple. You don't need a physical sheet. Just run through it mentally. Take a specific belief you hold.
Okay.
Then ask, 1. Who are my trusted sources for this? Your ethos. 2. What emotions are strongly linked to this belief for me? Your pathos. 3. What facts, data, or logical arguments support it? Your logos.
Got it. Ethos, pathos, logos for my belief.
Then push it a bit. What opposing sources, ethos, feelings, pathos, or arguments, logos, have I encountered and resisted or dismissed? Why?
Ooh, that's a good one. Examining the counter arguments.
And finally, reflect on how this particular belief shapes your identity or your actions. How does it connect to who you see yourself as?
That's really thorough.
You can apply this exercise to all sorts of things, your media consumption habits, your moral convictions, career goals, even how you approach relationships. It's a really practical way to put these concepts to work for self-awareness.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've covered the theory, why it matters, how to analyze ourselves. Let's broaden out again. Where else do we see ethos, pathos, and logos really showing up in action across different parts of life?
Oh, they are absolutely everywhere once you start looking. Take personal growth, for instance.
How so?
Well, when you're making a big life decision, changing career, say, you weigh advice from trusted people, ethos. Consider how each option makes you feel, your hopes and fears, ethos,
Clever.
and analyze the logical pros and cons like salary, commute, etc., logos.
True.
Even building good habits. You might be motivated by the ethos of your future, ideal self, the pathos of feeling accomplished or healthy, and the logos of understanding that consistent small steps lead to big results. It's all there.
It really is woven into our decision-making fabric. What about learning? Education.
Hugely important in education and learning. Think about the best teachers you've had. They likely established their credibility, you trusted their knowledge, ethos. They also made the subject interesting, relevant, maybe even exciting, connecting it to your world, pathos.
Yeah, passion is contagious.
And of course, they presented the information clearly, logically, making it understandable, logos. It's that blend again.
And as a student.
As a student, you're constantly evaluating sources, ethos, trying to stay motivated and engaged, pathos, and working to structure and understand the information logically, logos. Effective learning uses all three.
That makes perfect sense. A brilliant professor who's boring or untrustworthy won't be as effective. What about the media we consume every single day?
Oh, media and content creation is practically built on this stuff. Documentaries often rely on the filmmaker's reputation or the experts interviewed, ethos, a compelling emotional narrative, pathos, and the evidence presented, logos, social media. Often leans heavily on pathos. Strong emotions get clicks and shares. And ethos, the perceived authenticity or authority of the influencer. Logos can sometimes feel secondary.
Yeah, nuance doesn't always travel well online.
Sadly, no. And with news consumption, being aware is critical. Who is the source? Can I trust them? Ethos. How is the language making me feel? Is it objective or loaded? Pathos. And what are the actual facts being presented versus opinion? Logos. Media literacy is basically applying this framework.
So understanding ethos, pathos, logos is key to being a smarter media consumer. How about the business world? Marketing.
Absolutely central to business marketing and branding. Think about Apple, for example. They build immense ethos, trust, innovation, quality design. Their ads evoke pathos feelings of creativity, connection, sophistication, and then they provide the logo specs, features, performance data.
Trust, feel, then maybe the facts.
Often in that order, yes. Sales pitches, website copy, it's all about building trust, connecting emotionally with a need or desire, and then providing a logical justification to buy. Even in negotiations, understanding the other side's emotional drivers, pathos, and building rapport, ethos, can be just as crucial as the logical arguments.
It really is universal. Okay, what about really high-stakes areas like politics or social movements?
Politics, activism, and public discourse are probably the most visible arenas for ethos, pathos, and logos. Political campaigns are all about establishing the candidate's credibility and character, ethos,
Connecting with voters' hopes and fears.
pathos.
Yeah.
Exactly. And laying out policy proposals logically, logos. Think of powerful speeches, Martin Luther King Jr., Obama, even Trump, they masterfully blend all three.
True, regardless of the message, the technique is there.
Public protests often draw power from the shared identity and moral authority of the group, ethos, the strong emotions driving the cause, pathos, and the arguments for change, logos. Policy debates involve expert testimony, ethos, appeals to public good or preventing harm, Pathos, and detailed data analysis, Logos.
These examples really hammer home how pervasive this is. Does it filter down into our personal relationships too?
Definitely. Think about relationships and social dynamics. Resolving conflict often requires trusting the other person's intentions, Ethos, acknowledging and validating feelings, Pathos, and logically discussing the problem and potential solutions, Logos.
Yeah, you need all three for a good resolution.
Even something like dating. You present yourself to build trust and attraction, Ethos, you connect emotionally, Pathos, and you assess logical compatibility, shared values, life goals, Logos. And think about how often we trust advice from friends, Ethos, Pathos, even when the logic might be a bit shaky.
Huh. Yeah, that happens. It seems like nothing is untouched. Even things like spirituality.
For sure. Spirituality and belief systems heavily rely on these modes. Religious leaders or sacred texts hold authority, Ethos. Sermons, rituals, and stories evoke powerful emotions, awe, peace, guilt, hope, Pathos. And theological arguments, moral codes, or interpretations provide a logical structure, Logos. And even New Age or self-help movements often hook you with emotional appeals, promising happiness, transformation, Pathos. Then they build credibility through testimonials or the guru's story, Ethos. And finally, they offer a system, a set of steps that seems logical or provides answers, Logos.
Yeah. Okay, this framework really does provide a lens to understand almost any form of human communication and influence. So for someone listening wanting to start actively using this, what's the quick usable checklist?
Just keep these three simple questions in your back pocket. 1. Ethos. Who's speaking or persuading here? What's their authority, credibility, character? Do they resonate with me, and why? 2. Pathos. What emotions are being targeted or evoked? Are they genuine and relevant? Are they being used to manipulate or distract? 3. Logos. What's the actual argument or claim? Is it logical? Does the evidence truly support the conclusion? Are there gaps or fallacies?
Who? Feel. Logic.
Pretty much. Asking those three questions regularly about the messages you receive and even the ones you send can make a huge difference.
Simple, powerful. Now, we've touched on this, but let's talk explicitly about the ethics. Persuasion can be used for good or not so good.
Absolutely crucial distinction. Using these tools comes with responsibility. Ethical persuasion is very different from manipulation.
How can we tell the difference?
Okay, let's break it down by mode. Ethical ethos is earned trust based on genuine expertise, proven character, transparency. Unethical ethos involves deception, fake credentials, false authority, hiding conflicts of interest.
Okay, earned trust versus faked authority.
Ethical pathos connects through empathy, shared values, inspiring positive emotions like hope or compassion, used appropriately. Unethical pathos manipulates base emotions like fear, hatred, greed, or uses excessive sentimentality to shut down critical thinking. Think fear-mongering or shock advertising that exploits trauma.
Empathy versus exploitation of feelings.
And ethical logos uses clear reasoning, accurate and relevant evidence, acknowledges limitations or counter-arguments. Unethical logos uses logical fallacies, cherry-picked data, misleading statistics, jargon to confuse, or deliberately omits crucial information.
Clear reasoning versus twisting logic.
Exactly. A nurse sharing her direct COVID experience to encourage vaccination that's ethical, ethos, and pathos. A wellness influencer with no medical background claiming expertise to sell supplements that's likely unethical ASOS.
Egg example.
A charity showing the real impact of donations through a heartfelt story, ethical pathos. An attack ad using out-of-context quotes and scary music to demonize an opponent, unethical pathos. A speaker carefully laying out the pros and cons of a policy, ethical logos. Someone using complex-sounding but irrelevant statistics to overwhelm and appear smart, unethical logos.
It's about the intent and the honesty behind the method.
Precisely. And there are some specific manipulative tactics to watch out for, too, kind of hidden abuses of these modes.
Like what?
Well, there's ethos laundering, making a weak claim seem credible by associating it with a respected institution, like saying a Harvard study showed, without providing context or details when the study might be irrelevant or misinterpreted.
Borrowing credibility unearned.
Exactly. Then there's pathos inflation, where feelings are presented as facts, or emotional intensity is used to shut down debate, like saying, I feel this is wrong, therefore it is wrong, end of discussion.
Emotion overriding reason completely.
And weaponized logos, using logic or data selectively and deceptively to support a predetermined conclusion, ignoring contradictory evidence. Like using crime stats from one specific area to paint a misleading picture of an entire city.
Using logic as a smokescreen for bias.
Right. These are subtle but common ways persuasion turns unethical.
So what are the general guidelines for trying to persuade ethically ourselves?
I'd say 4 key things. 1, Intention. Are you trying to genuinely inform, help, or reach mutual understanding, or just win or manipulate? Your underlying goal matters. 2. Transparency. Be honest about who you are, your potential biases, and your sources. Don't hide things. 3. Respect for autonomy. Allow the other person space to think for themselves. Don't coerce or overly pressure them. Present your case, let them decide. 4. Balance. Strive for a healthy mix of ethos, pathos, and logos. Over-relying on just one, especially manipulative pathos or flimsy ethos, is often a red flag.
Intention, transparency, respect, balance. That's a great checklist. You have a final quick self-check before we try to persuade someone.
Yeah, good idea. Ask yourself, for ethos, am I asking for trust based on who I am, character, relationship, or based on what I actually know or have demonstrated, expertise, evidence? Is the basis for trust clear and relevant? For pathos, am I trying to help people connect emotionally with the issue in a meaningful way, or am I just trying to hijack their feelings to bypass their critical thinking? For logos, am I presenting my reasoning clearly and honestly? Am I acknowledging what the logic doesn't prove or the uncertainties involved?
That really puts the responsibility back on us as communicators.
It does. Understanding how persuasion works isn't just for defense. It's for ensuring we use these powerful tools responsibly when we communicate.
So, wrapping this all up, understanding ethos, pathos, and logos is like having a decoder ring for communication, isn't it?
It really is. It gives you a lens to see why we react the way we do, why a particular speaker resonates, why a story moves us, why an argument convinces us or doesn't. It explains our relationship with trust, emotion, and facts.
And knowing this isn't just academic, you've argued it's crucial for, like, cognitive self-defense in today's world.
Absolutely. And for ethical responsibility when we communicate, and even for emotional intelligence, understanding our own buttons and those of others, recognizing the balance, or often the imbalance, between credibility, emotion, and logic is vital when information flies at us so fast and attention spans are, well, what they are.
It's more than just rhetoric. It's almost a survival skill for navigating the modern world.
I think so. Being a conscious consumer and creator of information requires this kind of awareness.
Okay, final thought for our listeners to chew on.
Maybe this. The most compelling voices, and arguably the most ethical ones, don't just persuade effectively. They understand why persuasion works on a deep level, the interplay of trust, feeling, and reason. So reflect on that. How consciously are you engaging with these forces in the information you consume and the messages you put out into the world?
Powerful question to end on. Understanding the why behind the how. Thanks for diving deep with us today and unpacking all of this.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.